Hello! Welcome to another Southern New Hampshire University's Learning Center tutorial on how to use Minitab Express. In this video, we'll strictly be talking about running a two-sample t-test. If you haven't already, please install Minitab. You can do so either using the Minitab website or you can get the program through the SNHU Blackboard site. If you need help with that installation, there's a video within the series that talks about how you can install it and the steps you would need to do in order to get it running. So once you've done that, you can open up Minitab, and hopefully you'll be looking at something similar to what I'm looking at right here. So once in Minitab, to do a two-sample t-test, you will select the Statistics tab at the top, and we will be selecting two samples. And then in this drop-down, you'll be selecting T for two-sample t-test. Once you select that option, this pop-up will pop up, and you will need to give information to Minitab. So I'm actually going to close this real quick. So if you actually have the raw data, you will have your two samples that you'll need to put in to C1 and C2. So C1 would be sample 1, and C2 would be, well, sample 2. So I'm just going to put this information in here and run the test again. So T. In this case, you just tell it where the samples are. Oops. Oh, so that was actually my fault right here. So here it says both samples are in one column. That is not the case. I have my two samples in both columns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say each sample is in its own column. So this is sample 1, this is sample 2. You can then select the options tab here, and in this case, it's doing a difference test to see if there's a difference between our two samples. So when we're looking at these options, this says that the difference is not equal to 0, which basically means that there just is a difference. Difference is less than 0, which means that the C2 mean is larger, because then if it were larger, when we do the subtraction, we would be getting a negative difference. And then this says difference greater than 0, which means that C2 would be a smaller mean than C1. So depending on whatever type of problem that you're working with, you'll need to apply this to that problem. So I obviously can't see your question. This is just a generic explanation on how to use the two-sample t-test on Minitab Express. So once you select your options, you can even select a confidence level for a high or confidence interval that will be outputted as well. And if you need something additional, like let's say a professor wants an individual value plot or a box plot, you can select those options here. At that point, we just run the data, and it'll output our information. So it gives us that box plot that I selected. It tells you the p-value to the test here. This is your null and alternative. And this is basically everything you'll need in order to finish the test, because now you have your p-value. So you would just compare that to your alpha and figure out whether or not you would reject the null or fail to reject. Again, if you had the summarized data, you can select that instead. So let's say you didn't actually have C1 and C2, you just had like sample 1's mean, sample 1's standard deviation. You would hit summarize data and you would just enter that in. So like let's say you had sample sizes of 10 for each of your samples. Sample 1 had a mean of 8 and a standard deviation of 1, and sample 2 had a mean of 9 and a standard deviation of 1.5. So you just put in that summarized data in, you'd run it, and again, it would just output it for you. Be your null and alternative, it'd give you your p-value, and you would just finish your test like you normally would once you've acquired the p-value. If you end up running the test multiple times, there's the navigator option on the side of your Minitab screen. This lets you navigate through all the tests you may have run in the session of Minitab. So please feel free to use that if you've run the test more than once. But yeah, that basically concludes the video on how to use Minitab Express to run the two-sample t-test test and get the information needed for your problem.